Part 1. The Perfect Facade. In the affluent suburbs of New York City, the Smith family appeared to live a charmed life. Richard Smith, a successful businessman, had married Laura, who had taken on the role of his wife and stepmother to his 19-year-old stepson, Danny. Despite the outward appearance of domestic bliss, tensions simmered beneath the surface. Laura, who married Richard when Danny was just 10, had always struggled to connect with him. Their relationship was marked by frequent arguments and a sense of unease. Richard, eager to maintain family harmony, often overlooked the friction between his wife and stepson. As Danny grew older, the strain in their relationship became more pronounced, creating an atmosphere of simmering resentment. Part 2. An Unexpected Connection. Danny, feeling alienated at home, found solace in his workplace, where he met Emily, a captivating and enigmatic new employee. Emily, with her striking beauty and magnetic charm, quickly caught Danny's attention. Their initial interactions were professional, but it wasn't long before they began an affair that would change everything. Emily, however, had her own agenda. Beneath her glamorous exterior lay a calculating mind with a hidden past. She had come into Danny's life with a specific purpose, and her intentions were far from innocent. While Danny was drawn to her warmth and understanding, Emily saw an opportunity to exploit his vulnerabilities. Part 3. The Hidden Agenda. As Danny and Emily's relationship intensified, Emily began to manipulate Danny for her own gain. She subtly convinced him to make financial decisions that would benefit her, all while keeping her true intentions hidden. Danny, blinded by love and trust, failed to see the warning signs. Laura, meanwhile, grew increasingly suspicious of Emily's presence in their lives. Her instincts told her that something was amiss, and she began to investigate. Laura discovered that Emily had been accessing Danny's personal and financial information. She uncovered evidence that Emily was involved in dubious activities and had been siphoning money from Danny's accounts. Part 4. The Growing Tension. Laura decided to confront Danny about her findings. During a tense family dinner, she presented her evidence and warned him about Emily's manipulations. The confrontation was explosive, with accusations flying and emotions running high. Danny, feeling trapped and betrayed, was torn between his love for Emily and his loyalty to his family. Emily, sensing that her cover was about to be blown, escalated her manipulative tactics. She began to sow discord between Laura and Danny, further deepening the rift in the family. As the situation became increasingly volatile, Emily's behavior grew more erratic and aggressive. Part 5. Uncovering the Truth. The anonymous tip-off Laura received revealed that Emily was part of a larger criminal scheme involving an organized crime group. Emily had been using Danny to infiltrate the Smith family's financial affairs and had planned to use him to execute a major heist. Determined to expose Emily and put an end to her scheme, Laura and Danny decided to join forces. They devised a plan to gather more evidence and confront Emily. The investigation led them to uncover a network of deceit and criminal activity, revealing the full extent of Emily's deception. Part 6. The Night of Reckoning. As Laura and Danny prepared to confront Emily, they discovered that she had escalated her plans. Emily had arranged to carry out a violent act against Richard, aiming to eliminate him and seize control of the family's wealth. The night became a race against time as Laura and Danny worked to thwart Emily's plan. The confrontation reached its climax in the Smith family home. Laura and Danny, armed with their newfound evidence, confronted Emily in a dramatic showdown. The family home, once a symbol of security, became the backdrop for a harrowing battle of wits and survival. Emily's true nature was revealed in a shocking and violent climax. The criminal network she was involved with, now desperate and exposed, sought to eliminate any loose ends. The night ended in a dramatic and tragic resolution, with lives changed forever. Part 7. Aftermath and Reflection. In the aftermath of the confrontation, Laura and Danny were left to piece together their shattered lives. The revelations about Emily and the criminal activities she was involved in left deep scars. The family had to navigate the legal and emotional fallout from the events, and their relationships were forever altered. As they rebuilt their lives, Laura and Danny found themselves reflecting on the choices that led them to this dark chapter. They grappled with the impact of Emily's betrayal and the cost of the deception that had unfolded. Despite the pain and loss, they emerged stronger, having faced the darkness together and survived. In the idyllic suburb of Brooksville, where perfectly manicured lawns and friendly waves were the norm, no one would have ever suspected the dark secrets brewing behind closed doors. Karen Whitman, a devoted wife and mother of two, seemed to have it all: a loving husband, a beautiful home, and a reputation as the heart of the community. Yet beneath the polished veneer of her life lay a void, a creeping loneliness that grew more profound with each passing year. Karen's husband, John, a successful businessman, had become increasingly distant, his mind always on his work. Their conversations, once filled with laughter and shared dreams, had dwindled into a series of mundane exchanges about bills and the children's schedules. The passion that had once defined their relationship had faded, replaced by a cold routine. Karen felt invisible, trapped in a life that no longer resembled the one she had envisioned when she walked down the aisle years ago. Enter Mark, the handsome and charismatic son of their new neighbors. Fresh out of college and full of youthful exuberance, Mark was everything that Karen's life lacked: exciting, carefree, and, most importantly, attentive. He noticed Karen in a way that no one else did, complimenting her on things her husband had long taken for granted. Their interactions started innocently enough: chats over the fence while gardening, a shared cup of coffee when Mark would drop by to help with small chores. But soon, these moments became the highlight of Karen's day, and the boundaries of propriety began to blur. As summer stretched on, their encounters grew more frequent, each one more intimate than the last. What began as harmless flirtation escalated into secret rendezvous, passionate embraces, and whispered promises. Karen, once a model of suburban virtue, found herself consumed by a forbidden affair with a man nearly half her age. Mark, equally enthralled by the allure of the forbidden, became obsessed with Karen, seeing her not just as a lover, but as the key to an exciting and unconventional life. But in a town as small as Brooksville, secrets have a way of surfacing. Mark's mother, Evelyn, began to notice the changes in her son: his constant disappearances, his sudden mood swings, and the way his eyes lingered on Karen whenever she was near. She tried to dismiss it as a harmless crush, but the truth was too glaring to ignore. Meanwhile, Karen's husband, John, who had long been too engrossed in his work to notice the emotional distance growing between him and his wife, stumbled upon the truth in the most unexpected way: a cryptic text message from Mark, left open on Karen's phone. John's world shattered in an instant. The betrayal cut deep, and the anger that surged within him was overwhelming. He confronted Karen, demanding to know the truth. The confrontation was explosive, a collision of years of pent-up resentment, guilt, and unfulfilled desires. Karen, caught in her lies, confessed to the affair, but it was too late to salvage anything. The damage was done, and the life they had built together was irreparably fractured. The affair could have ended there, a scandalous tale of suburban infidelity, destined to be the talk of the town for months. But the situation took a darker turn when Mark, unable to cope with the sudden end of the affair and the emotional fallout, became increasingly unstable. Consumed by jealousy and obsession, Mark started to stalk Karen, refusing to let go of what they had shared. He believed they were meant to be together, and if he couldn't have her, no one could. One fateful night, as a storm raged outside, Mark broke into the Whitman home, armed and desperate. He confronted Karen in the kitchen, his eyes wild with a mixture of love and hatred. What followed was a violent struggle that left Karen fighting for her life. The sounds of the altercation woke John, who rushed downstairs to find his wife being attacked by the very man who had destroyed their marriage. In a desperate attempt to save Karen, John intervened, and in the chaos, Mark's obsession reached its tragic conclusion. When the police arrived, they found a scene of unimaginable horror. Mark lay dead, his life ended by the same hands that had once embraced him with love. Karen, bruised and broken, was left to grapple with the consequences of her choices that had led to a nightmarish end she could never have foreseen. In the aftermath, the quiet town of Brooksville was forever changed. The Whitman home, once a symbol of stability and success, became a chilling reminder of how quickly life can spiral out of control. The affair, the obsession, and the murder became the stuff of local legend, a cautionary tale whispered in hushed tones for years to come. Karen, now alone, was left to pick up the pieces of a life torn apart by a moment of weakness, a fleeting desire that led to unthinkable tragedy. In the quaint, picturesque suburb of Crestwood, the lives of Samantha and Robert King appeared enviable to outsiders. They lived in a sprawling, immaculate home, drove luxury cars, and were active in the community. On the surface, their marriage seemed the epitome of success and stability, but beneath this polished veneer, a darker undercurrent was brewing, leading to a tragic outcome no one could have anticipated. The story of Samantha and Robert King is a haunting exploration of how the pursuit of excitement and forbidden fantasies can lead to unimaginable tragedy. Prepare to be captivated as we dive into a chilling narrative of passion, betrayal, and ultimate demise, shedding light on a case that left an indelible mark on Crestwood. As authorities delved into the case, they uncovered a web of betrayal and deceit. The investigation unraveled a series of events that exposed how a harmless fantasy spiraled into a deadly obsession. Michael and Laura were thrust into the spotlight, and the truth behind Samantha's death came to light, revealing a tragic tale of desire gone awry. One fateful evening, the fragile balance of their lives shattered. The crescendo of jealousy and rage culminated in a horrifying climax. When the dust settled, Samantha was found dead under shocking and grisly circumstances. The tranquil facade of Crestwood was disrupted by a police investigation that revealed the dark underbelly of their seemingly perfect lives. Tensions soared when Michael's possessive behavior and Laura's jealousy began to surface. The once lighthearted game became fraught with manipulation and deceit. Samantha's obsession with Michael grew, pushing Robert to the brink. Their home, once a sanctuary, became a battleground of emotions and secrets. The four of them agreed to explore their fantasies together, setting the stage for an experiment that was meant to be exhilarating but was doomed from the start. As Samantha and Michael's relationship grew more intense, Robert found himself increasingly sidelined. The boundary between fantasy and reality began to blur, and what had started as a thrilling escapade turned into a volatile love triangle. Their search for the perfect couple led them to Michael and Laura Jensen, a charismatic pair who seemed to embody everything Samantha and Robert desired. Michael, a 35-year-old personal trainer with a magnetic charm, and Laura, a former model turned socialite, quickly became the object of Samantha's fascination. The initial meetings were filled with flirtatious banter and seductive glances, laying the groundwork for what would soon become a dangerous game. It all began with a conversation over dinner, an innocuous discussion about fantasy and desire that took an unexpected turn. Samantha and Robert, in a bid to rekindle their spark, fantasized about swapping lives with another couple. They imagined the thrill of new experiences, the excitement of forbidden encounters, and the novelty of breaking free from their everyday routines. What started as a playful experiment soon evolved into an intense obsession. It all began with a conversation over dinner, an innocuous discussion about fantasy and desire that took an unexpected turn. Samantha and Robert, in a bid to rekindle their spark, fantasized about swapping lives with another couple. They imagined the thrill of new experiences, the excitement of forbidden encounters, and the novelty of breaking free from their everyday routines. What started as a playful experiment soon evolved into an intense obsession. Samantha, a 42-year-old former beauty queen with a vibrant personality, had always craved something more than the monotonous rhythm of suburban life. Robert, her husband of 15 years, was a successful financial advisor who prided himself on providing for his family. Yet, as the years went by, the excitement in their marriage had dimmed, leaving Samantha yearning for a sense of adventure. The next story is stepfather's secret affair with stepson leads to brutal murder in the quiet town of Oakwood, nestled in the rolling hills of Vermont. The Parker family seemed like the perfect embodiment of the American dream. James Parker, a successful architect in his early 52s, was a respected member of the community. He was the proud patriarch of a blended family, married to the warm and charismatic Elizabeth, a woman who had brought light back into his life after the death of his first wife. Together they had crafted an idyllic life, raising Elizabeth's teenage son, Ryan, from her previous marriage, alongside James's own daughter, Emily. But beneath the facade of domestic bliss, James harbored a secret so dark and twisted that even those closest to him would have never suspected. A secret that, once revealed, would tear the Parker family apart and lead to a shocking and grisly crime that would leave the small town of Oakwood reeling in disbelief. It all began innocently enough. or so it seemed. As Ryan, now 19, began to mature, James found himself inexplicably drawn to the young man who had grown up under his roof. What started as a seemingly paternal bond gradually morphed into something far more sinister. James, a man torn between his responsibilities and forbidden desires, embarked on a dangerous path that blurred the lines between fatherly love and something far more inappropriate. Ryan, unaware of the brewing storm, began to sense the subtle changes in James's behavior. At first it was the lingering glances, the unnecessary touches, the private conversations that seemed to carry an unspoken tension. But as the months passed, the bond between stepfather and stepson became increasingly complex, filled with confusion, manipulation, and ultimately, betrayal. The turning point came one fateful night when Elizabeth was out of town for a business trip. The atmosphere in the house was thick with unspoken emotions as James and Ryan found themselves alone. A simple conversation took a dark and unexpected turn, spiraling into a confession of feelings that should have never been spoken. Shocked and repulsed, Ryan tried to distance himself, but James's obsession had already crossed a dangerous line. As the days passed, the tension in the Parker household became unbearable. Elizabeth, sensing something amiss but unable to pinpoint the source, grew increasingly anxious. Ryan, tormented by guilt and fear, became withdrawn and moody, avoiding James at every turn. And James, driven by his forbidden desires, began to unravel, his behavior growing more erratic and desperate. Then, one evening, the fragile balance of their lives was shattered. Ryan, unable to bear the weight of the secret any longer, confided in a close friend about his stepfather's advances. But the truth had a way of finding its way back to James, and when it did, the consequences were deadly. Fueled by rage and humiliation, James confronted Ryan in a fit of uncontrollable fury. The argument quickly escalated into violence, and in the heat of the moment, James committed an act so brutal that it would forever stain the Parker family name. When the authorities arrived, the scene they discovered was nothing short of a nightmare. Ryan's lifeless body lay in a pool of blood, and James, once a pillar of the community, sat in shock, his hands stained with the evidence of his crime. As the investigation unfolded, the town of Oakwood was rocked by the revelations that emerged. James's double life, his forbidden desires, and the deadly obsession that had consumed him became the subject of public scrutiny and media frenzy. The once respected architect was now a pariah, his reputation destroyed, and his family left to pick up the pieces of a life shattered by a secret that should have never been kept. The story of James Parker and Ryan was not just a tale of forbidden love, it was a cautionary tale of how hidden desires, when left unchecked, can lead to devastating consequences. The tragedy that befell the Parker family serves as a grim reminder that some secrets are too dangerous to keep, and when they are finally exposed, the cost can be far greater than anyone could have imagined.